Sequel number 23. It is the first one in these celebrations of the Church of Uganda at 150 years. Fourth week, when we look at the continued civil war in Buganda and how that affected the church. Remember, I told you before that many books refer to these as religious wars. I refuse to call them that. I see a real quest for political power, and therefore for me these are civil wars. So this is another week where we are going to enjoy both the church and the civil situation in the kingdom or in the country, and as we go on celebrating our church history. My name is Christopher Amos Chikomeko Ntambi. Welcome to sequel number 23. Bishop Alfred Tucker is now resident in Buganda, although his headquarters is at Town, north of Mombasa. So that is where his cathedral is, not Namirembe, as far as 1891 is concerned. So when Bishop Tucker inspected the baptism register, he found a list of 200 people. So he began to prepare many of them for confirmation. Meanwhile, he learnt about the Cold War between the Rubaga mission and the Namirembe mission or Bukesa Hill mission. He took the initiative for peace talks. So in January 1891, he met Reverend Father Alphonse Brad to settle issues. Remember, Mapera had died the previous year. So what were these issues? They had to agree on how to share Sese Island ministry. There was a controversy there. Then the Roman Catholic Church wanted to stop chasing away white fathers adherents from outlying villages in some of the counties of the kingdom. Then the Roman Catholics also wanted to stop the habit of snatching miraculous medals from white fathers adherents. The Roman Catholic converts used to wear those miraculous medals, and there was a bad habit of snatching them away from them. So the new leaders of the Roman Catholic Church wanted that to stop. There was also then also CMS was requesting that the Roman Catholics should stop the habit of snatching booklets from their adherents. You know, those from Natete used to, now at Bukesa Hill, they used to give them literature, and the white fathers adherents or the Roman Catholic adherents would snatch the books from the Anglicans. Now, they also agreed to meet regularly to sort out any issues. Now, that was a very good gesture from Bishop Alfred Tucker, a peace mover. It showed his other side. And in the same January 1891, Captain William Mackinnon, the leader of the Imperial British East African Company, arrived in Buganda with so many Nubian soldiers. And he also brought him a Maxim cannon gun. This was a very powerful gun. It was a destroyer. Now, he announced that his company was broke, no money, and therefore he had come to see how they would withdraw from Buganda. Now that news shocked the bishop. He feared for what would happen. He had already been told how Karl Peters armed the Roman Catholics. He knew Charles Stokes had also armed both Anglicans and Catholics in Kabula, but many of those ammunitions were used during the war and each faction kept theirs. So the balance of power was more on the Roman Catholic side when it came to war. And he was therefore fearful if the IBEA, which were from Britain, and therefore more of Anglicans than Roman Catholic, if they ever left. So Bishop Tucker was in a dilemma. He knew how the Roman Catholics would approach the Germans in neighboring Tanganyika to try and influence things in Buganda. So he asked Mackinnon not to withdraw. He promised him that he was leaving and going back to England, and he would specifically make the fundraising for the Imperial British East Africa his major task. Can you imagine? A bishop is going back home to raise money not for the church, to raise money not for ministry, but to raise money for political leaders, a political company, to be able to rule. Otherwise, he saw no opportunity of the church continuing, especially the Anglican Church continuing in the absence of this company. So the bishop went ahead. He made his first confirmation on the 18th of January, 1891, and he confirmed 70 candidates. So the Church of Uganda pioneering confirmation by a bishop was on the 18th of January, 1891. Who were confirmed? Can you imagine? The Katikiro Apolokagwa was confirmed on that day. Chiefs like Nicodemus Sebwato, the Sekibobo, was confirmed on that day. The county chief of Bulemezi, Zakaria Kizito, was also confirmed on that day. Then we have people like the first baptized people in the country, like Duta, was also confirmed on that day. Batulumayo Zimbe, confirmed on that day. Yairo Mutachala, confirmed on that day, and many others. All this was done at the Bukesa Mission Church, the one which had been built at the base of the hill, on instructions of Kabaka Mwanga, not to build on the top of the hill. The bishop then visited Namugongo, Martyr's Ground, and found what he called a dismal scene. There was a low-lying swamp. He saw grown reeds and cypress. My goodness. These are things which the bishop is writing in his own memoirs, because you see, Alfred Tucker wrote. He wrote volume 1 and volume 2. So much of this history is actually recorded by him. We don't have even to go into very big research. This is what he saw when he visited Namgong. In 1891, January, what did he see? I want to repeat, a dismal scene of low-lying swamp, grown reeds, and cypress. Okay, the bishop also visited the Kasubi royal tombs, where Mutesa I had been buried. Of course, Mutesa is the one who wrote the letter that invited missionaries. So he wanted to see this great man, where had he been buried? And being an artist, I hadn't told you maybe, Bishop Tucker was an artist. He was a landscape artist. Omukubi w'ebifaananyi ate ng'atunula butunuzi n'akuba. So he spent 1 hour with his tools drawing the spectacle of the palace. That is Muziwazaala Mpanga. Now, the bishop's last major work was the formation of a finance committee, which he appointed Reverend Walker to assist the church council. He was then ready to leave and return to his cathedral at Freiretown, Mombasa, and then, of course, later on, move on to Great Britain to fundraise for the company, who had agreed to keep around and wait for the money he had promised them. Their headquarters, this company, was in Zanzibar, not Kampala, or not in Kao, not Mengo. Their headquarters was in Zanzibar, and therefore when he got the money, he would send it directly to their headquarters in Zanzibar. So the bishop bid farewell to Kabaka Mwanga II and asked him to safeguard the security of the Church Missionary Society missionaries, because for him, he was leaving them behind. The bishop left on the 21st of January 1891 with Reverend Douglas Hooper, and they passed through Munyonyo Port. The Katikiro accompanied them up to the port. Now they used canoes all the way to Sese Islands, where they got a bigger ship, which finally took them to Bukoba Port. At Bukoba Port, they found this Muzungu, Emin Pasha. I told you this man was a Germany, but he had become a Muslim and baptized him these other funny names. So it means Emin Pasha had went to Europe and then now he was back. So he was always around. So he was at Bukoba and he helped the bishop with some provisions. And the bishop was able then to proceed to Usukuma in the islands and of Lake Victoria. And then, of course, later on cross into the mainland, passing through the Usambiro mission, where Makai had earlier died from. At Usambiro, the drum for paid porters was sounded for the caravan that would see the bishop move to the coast. It had about 20 leaders and there were about 200 porters. And these were assembled and they decided to start the journey to the coast of East Africa. The Usambiro mission was unfortunately closed. The Church Missionary Society could not handle it anymore. And the missionaries Dix and Damond were transferred to a more bigger mission called the NASA Mission Station. So northern Tanzania, Kagera region, and south of Kagera region, they used to have a Church Missionary Society station called NASA. As we go to future sequels, we shall be referring to this station a lot, NASA, and not Usambiro anymore, although the two were not in the same positions. Now the bishop passed through Unyamwezi, Mugunda, Mukali, all these are in Tanganyika, Mohalala, Ugogo, Unyanguira to Mpwapwa, where they reached on the 19th of March 1891. You see, people who left in January, by 19th March, they are still on the road. Actually, there were even no roads. I think they're just moving through swamps, forests, deserts, you name it. So the return journey continued to Rubeho, to Mamboya Mission, where the bishop confirmed about 12 candidates and then moved on. And on the 26th of March, 1891, the caravan moved on through Nguru, Magabika, Simbamweni, and on the 2nd of April, they reached the port at Sadini. Now this is the port along the coast of East Africa in Tanganyika, near Bagamoyo. You can actually call it Bagamoyo town. The slave trade center of long ago, which was no longer doing that business because slave trade had been abolished. The bishop caravan therefore ended. The porters were paid. And the bishop then crossed over to Zanzibar, where the ship for Mombasa was waiting. And he left for Mombasa on the 4th of April, reaching the following day on the 5th of April. The bishop then made a visit to Malindi. Malindi was much further on north coast, along the coast of East Africa, or Kenya for that matter, to see some missionaries there. And then he finally left for England on the 27th of April 1891 by ship. Tomorrow, in the next sequel, we shall see how he handled the situation on arrival in Great Britain. Please remember to subscribe. Many are watching, but you are not subscribing. Kindly subscribe and make me happy too. And so until the next sequel, may the good Lord bless us all. Thank you.